What is up? Thank God iPod is live. I'm your host, Chaz Pippitt. I'm the founder of Baseball Rebellion and Softball Rebellion. My co host, Will Hoyle, and I talk about baseball, softball, and anything related to training those sports. From current events to hitting, pitching, game approach, throwing, arm care, weight training, you name it, we cover it. And tonight, thank God iPod has an awesome show for you. I'm riding solo like Jason Derulo tonight as Will is off, but instead, I think Eric Tyler might jump on because he's super excited about our guest. We are going to be joined by one of the most highly regarded and influential hitting coaches in college baseball, Dan Heefner. He's the head coach of Dallas Baptist University, and they're coming off a super regional appearance, and I cannot wait to hear about that. But tonight, my opening rant is going to be about how your playing career may or may not actually have some influence on whether or not you can coach. And I think it's really important that people understand, first and foremost, that everybody who played in the big leagues or the NBA or the NFL, you guys are the elite of the elite. If you played professional softball, if you played professional anything, you're the 1% of the 1% of anybody who ever played that game. Congratulations. As a kid, I grew up wanting to play in the NBA. Briefly, I thought about being a Major League Baseball player. Obviously, that didn't work out, and I work with kids now, but I also train all kinds of different pros, and I work with coaches and different programs. And the reality is, I have spent the last 15 years of my life working to make other people better. And that's a different skill set than working to make yourself better. Now, both take discipline, both take work ethic, both take focus, deliberate practice, and then testing yourself in tougher environments to figure out how you break. They both take that. Both take an investment in money in yourself and in your business. Both take an investment in your body to make sure that you're healthy enough and strong enough to either compete or work a 14-hour day, which I am doing today. There are so many factors that make a great coach. Are you a captivating orator? Are you somebody who can make the moms want to come and pay for your lessons and instruction? Are you nice to the little sister? Are you nice to the kid that's in the cage with you? Some of that is kind of par for the course, because if you're a jerk, nobody's going to come see you. But if you can't make players better, eventually you fail. And everybody knows, or a lot of people know now, how Baseball Rebellion started. I mean, I literally started in a barn, and we have a beautiful 13,000 square foot facility now. Just recently sold the building, and we're looking to move to a different style of facility that will push Baseball Rebellion into the future. But none of that would be possible if I had been playing. I wouldn't be the coach that I am today if I were a better player than I was, because I wouldn't have had the time to devote my time to making other people better, to learning about how a 10-year-old boy gets better at rotating, to learn about the strength deficiencies a 14-year-old girl may have if she hasn't, gone through her growth period yet, to learn about what makes and motivates a 16-year-old kid to get in the weight room and change his or her body. How do I make people understand the fact that I didn't play actually makes me a better coach? Now, it does not make me more knowledgeable on how to hit a major league pitch from the experience of doing it. But what it does make me able to do is look at hitting differently. Because I didn't play baseball for a very long time as a youth athlete and then into pros, I can disassociate myself from the game. And it allows coaches like me to say, okay, I need player X to be better, and I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. And there are plenty of examples of great players who weren't great coaches. Look at Magic Johnson. He was atrocious. Amazing player, horrible coach. Bill Belichick never played it down in the NFL. So there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, both on the coaching side and the experience side. And sometimes they can mesh and make a coach even greater. Other times, it doesn't work that way. So what I would say, if I'm a parent, and I am of two young boys, when I look at whether or not I trust someone to work at my facility or teach, Yeah, if they played pro ball, great. If they played in college, great. If they coached in college, great. But do they have the ability to actually make a kid better in 40 minutes or 30 minutes? And if the answer is yes, you got a place here at Baseball Rebellion. And if the answer is you just have a baseball card, I'm just not that interested. The opening rant tonight was brought to you by HitTrax. HitTrax, in my opinion, is the best indoor ball tracking software anywhere. It tells you everything about exit velocity, launch angle, which I know everybody hates that word, but it's just a measurement. It tells you distance, outs, hits. HitTrax is amazing. Every single ball at Baseball Rebellion is tracked by HitTrax, and that allows us to prove improvement from session to session, month to month, season to season, and year to year. Without HitTrax, I was coaching things incorrectly. I know I was. I was saying good job on outs, and I was telling players that home runs and doubles were fly balls. And unfortunately, I was wrong then, but I know what I know now, and HitTrax is why that happens. I absolutely love HitTrax. I can't say enough about it. It's gamified. It's super fun. The kids love it. And it actually can be used as a massively helpful training tool. So check out HitTrax. I think you're really, really going to like it if you're a facility. It looks like Eric has joined us now. So I'm going to go to Eric here real quick. Eric, what's up, buddy?
What is up? I'm pumped to be on again. I did such a good job last week. Apparently, we fired Will now, and
Yeah,
now
get
I'm
him
all
out of
in.
here. No, I'm sick of that guy anyway. He's always talking about how he has class or he has school. Like, come on, let's get serious. This is a unpaid podcast. He needs to make sure that he gets here. So Eric, I'm about to bring Dan Heefner on, and I don't know about you, but I'm super excited to talk to him. You recently had some offers to become a college coach, and now that you're the COO of Baseball Rebellion, and you're really pushing us into the future, I'm really interested to see what you have for Dan. But I'm going to bring Dan on real quick. Dan, what's going on, man? Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, really excited. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously Eric's here. I want to introduce you guys first. Eric's my COO. He's an awesome guy. He's really challenging me to become better at different things. Like, for instance, hosting a podcast or a live show, right? I've never done this before, so let's figure this out. But one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on, and I'll tell a little backstory about how we met. We had never spoken before, like a few weeks ago. And you told me you were somewhat familiar with what Baseball Rebellion was doing, but you ended up picking up a copy of the book, Learn the Turn, and apparently you liked it, and we connected somehow after that. You read it in a day. So tell us about that interaction, that first time that we met.
Yeah, I just kind of came across it online, saw that you had put the book out, and it intrigued me. So started looking into it, got it right away. Like you said, read it, and always looking to learn. Hitting's tough, and one of our philosophies is like, I want to know what everybody's doing, because you can pick something up from anybody. But I thought you nailed it in your book. I think we have extremely similar philosophies, even some similar backgrounds on kind of how we got to where we're at today. One of the things that we've done for years is we do a lot, to prepare them to hit and to get their body moving correctly without a bat. We've done it with medicine balls, PVC pipes, all those type of things. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, if somebody turns better, they're put in a better position to be a good hitter. The path improves if you turn well. The path's going to be better, more power. So many things. So when I saw your book and saw that was kind of what it was about, I was fired up to get it, and I wasn't disappointed. I think you nailed it, and I think you make this point in the book that the rack is, you can do some of this stuff with PVC pipe, but it's not the same as with the rack. And so we got a couple racks, and then have eventually gotten more, and it's part of, we've added it to the pre-hitting warm-up things that we do with our hitters. And another point you made in it that I really liked was, the way you called it was non-invasive training, that it's, you're teaching them how to move better, how to turn better without them thinking they're changing their swing. And I think that is, couldn't agree with it more, especially for us, like at the college level, where you got guys who've had success, and they're not, like, what they're doing is they're going to have to make some changes. Well, I don't want them to think I'm changing them. We're trying to figure out, okay, how can we how can we get them to move better without them thinking I had a swing overhaul and he changed my swing. And so that's what I love about what you're doing. And, really like the rack. You had a couple ideas in there I'd never seen before that I was real excited about, and we've implemented already. And, the way these go, and I'm sure it's been the same for you, it's oftentimes, occasionally you get the aha moment and it's just like a flip the switch overnight change, but oftentimes it takes some time and it just kind of evolves and blends into their swing. And so we've been doing it on a consistent basis, and have already seen some guys making some changes, moving better. And kind of the next step is adding resistance to it. So that's what I'm looking forward to next. So
it's coming.
Book 2.
It's coming. Load the Turn is already being written. So you mentioned some stuff about the book that you really liked, and I mean, obviously, I didn't know you were going to say that, so I knew you liked the book because you bought some racks, so I kind of inferred that. But I really appreciate what you just said. You've got a director of hitting development on your staff, Sandman, right? And
yeah, Sandman.
That's a position that I have not seen many college coaches have, many universities being willing to invest in. Can you tell us a little bit about that position? Like, how long have you had it? What does Evan do? And how has that really helped your hitters kind of take the next step?
Yeah, I think we really pride ourselves on development. That's the core of our program, and what allows us to be successful is just, we try to get great players. They've got to be talented, but they got to have big time drive to want to develop. And same for us as coaches. Like, we need to constantly be getting better. Our goal is to be on the cutting edge of college baseball development, and with that is technology. Kind of like you said in your opener, talking about hit tracks and how that just changes the game for the way you're able to coach. So, for us, it was TrackMan. We got TrackMan. We were one of the first college programs to get that back in 2015. And that kind of happened. Some of our guys got drafted into pro ball, and they donated back part of their signing bonus and got us TrackMan. And then since then, it's kept going like that. And so TrackMan.
That's amazing that you got guys get drafted and immediately put money back into the program. TrackMan's not cheap. We're talking 20 grand easy.
Yeah, we had a guy, he was a 3rd round pitcher, and he donated back and bought us TrackMan. And then he kind of started. It was Cy Snead. He made it to the major leagues, pitched for the Astros, had a pretty good career, but he kind of started that. And then since then, that's how we've gotten Hit Tracks, Rapsodo, Edgertronic Camera, Blast, like a lot of that technology that we have, KVest, it's been donations from former players. So, but with that, it's great to have those tools, but you got to use them too. And, that's kind of how we came about the director of hitting development. We started off with the director of player development, and then soon learned it's too big of a job. If you're going to do that on the pitching side and the hitting side, like, one side's going to suffer. So we kind of split it and, just have a director of pitching, director of hitting. And it started, our first director of hitting was Jordan Getzelman. He got hired away from us to be one of the hitting coordinators for the Brewers. He's now at Middle Tennessee State. And now we have Evan Sandman. So basically the biggest part of that job is they're kind of like my right-hand man. I get to implement all the hitting stuff. The way the NCAA works, like, they're limited on, they can't talk directly to the players, coach the players, but they oversee and run all the tech. So, for instance, like we use TrackMan for all of our scrimmages. So we see everything that the hitters are swinging at. Like, that's a big deal to us, is to track, what do you swing at? What's your chase rate? But we really try to focus on their strengths. So what do you hit well, to be able to give them a heat map of what are the locations you handle the best, and for them to know that and help their approach when they go up there. And then obviously we want data off the bat too. And, one way we use that is, again, hitting's hard, and we want to give them as many ways as possible to feel good about what they're doing. So, we're using exit velocity, launch angle. You mentioned it in the opener. Like, I'm not sure why launch angle has a bad rap. It's just it's a measurement, and you can whatever you like to measure, whatever launch angle you like, then you need to give feedback for guys of where you want them to be. So, like, we had a scrimmage yesterday, and then today, like, Evan then goes in as soon as that scrimmage is done, and he's going to come up with a barrel sheet and send that out to the guys of every ball over 95. Another one we add in there is any ball, no matter how hard you hit it, between 10 and 15, because in the fall, it's a hit. Doesn't matter how hard you hit it. We hit 827 when we hit the ball between 10 and 15 degrees. We're huge on, we want to drive the ball. We want extra base hits. Our goal is to lead the nation in doubles. We hit a ton of home runs every year, but we've just found that kind of with the way that we teach our guys to swing, we don't have a problem elevating the baseball. We kind of need to stay more on, our goal is long line drives. So we really highlight, we're going to highlight the exit velo. We're going to highlight, how did you hit it to? Where did you hit it to? What pitch did you swing at? We use blast pretty extensively as well. Like, we basically just want to know, we now have the tech to know everything. What is the bat doing? What is your body doing? What pitch are you swinging at? And what is the ball doing off the bat? And that director of hitting development, he's going to compile all those things together. And then we can come up with a true, okay, here's what you're doing. And now if we need to make any adjustments, we're not guessing at what we're doing. We have kind of data to back it up. And then also to see if you're on the right track, then this is going to really pump you up to see it. If we need to make a change, then again, we're not guessing on it, and we can be pretty strategic about what we're going to change and how we're going to change it.
I love that. I love the long line drive thought. One thing I'm really interested in, Dan, is we talked about kind of the pre-hitting movement work, and we've also talked about the technology. I think we'd love to hear of how you guys come up with that, whether it's pre-practice or pre-hitting, whatever it is, movement routine, and what technology goes into that to create that routine for the player.
So you're talking our pre-hitting work, what we do?
Yep.
Yeah, during that time, it is, you nailed it in your book. It's about getting them to turn better. So in the past, it's been a ton of medicine ball stuff, and activation as well. So wanting to turn on the right muscles. So, often we kind of cycle it. They don't do the same exact thing every day. So like getting the glutes turned on, like that's a thing we're going to do on a consistent basis before they hit, so they can feel that and they're using that and that's turned on. So just the posterior chain's ready to go, and then the core being able to rotate well. So medicine ball things, different PVC things that we've done in the past, mobility. Some guys have restrictions from a mobility standpoint that prevents them from turning well. Stability, obviously that's a huge thing too. Like we need to be able to turn really well, but just from a directional standpoint, we got to be able to stop it too. I don't know. I go back and forth on that one. My theory has kind of been like, let's get them turning really good first, and then we'll put the brakes on them. That's kind of the way we've gone about it, which is what I like about the rack. I think it kind of teaches it in a similar fashion. Let's learn to turn fast, but like the balance position ones where you're in the lunge position, you're in your contact position, and then working the different side bends and having balance in those. I love that. That was one I'd never seen before that we've added that I really like. So that's kind of what we do during that pre-hitting work. There's not a lot of technology during that time. Other ones we do is a lot with bands too. So we're going to do things for their core, for their lower half, but then, the upper half as well. And basically it's kind of that idea of force feel and then feed the mistake. So we're going to make them, feel different parts of their body. So like putting a band on the bat, like on the knob of the bat, which is there's a ton of tension to it. I'm going to stand behind them and hold that, and then have them start going in their swing. And if they're connected, if they're sequencing right, they're going to rotate that band for the first half of their swing. They're not going to try to push it.
Right.
And they're going to feel their core. It's going to light them up. And so we like doing things like that, or then do the same exact thing from the front. So now we're going to pull the band from the front.
Sure.
So, they can't push their hands forward. They're going to have to resist it back, and they get to feel the scap in their core and what that feels like. And then we'll kind of do like a 360 and go all around them and be shaking it while they're doing it. So, just ways for them to feel. And then the one thing we love is what feels can we do beforehand, and that forces them to do it right. And then when we get in the cage, it's real easy then to use that as a cue. Like if a guy's not turning well, I don't have to tell them, something about their body and get real internal on them. It's like, hey, where'd you feel that med ball drill we did? When we did the plyo med ball throw, where'd you feel that? And they'll kind of point to the back of their, the back oblique. It's like, okay, now do that on this next swing. Feel that same
Right.
spot.
Right.
So to me, like now you get to turn it into an external cue because you're relating it to something we did on a feel. Or, hey, you remember on that band drill where I was pulling you forward, how you had to keep your hands back? Do that on this next swing. So that's kind of how we do the pre-hitting movement things, is just how can we get them to swing correctly using bands, weights, med balls, now the Rebels rack, get them to move correctly and now it's not even their bat in their hand. The ball's not coming at them. And so now we can think about some movements. And then when we do go in and the ball's coming at them, I think that just transitions that much quicker.
Yeah. And is that early hitting routine, is that individualized to each hitter for what they need to work on? Or does that look like a plan for the day that all your hitters go through? I know one of the things that really interests me is the time constraints that you guys have as college coaches of you have to reach 14, 15, 16 different individuals and you have to try to get the most out of them. And so is that an individualized plan or is that more a team plan and you change it day by day?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something I love that part of coaching and working with hitters is how do you develop a team mentality philosophy that allows guys to be themselves too?
Yeah.
Another kind of just developmental thing that we have is like we want it to be a two-way street where it's not we tell them everything to do and they just basically follow our recipe. Like we want them to be an active participant in their development because they have to feel it. And ultimately we want them to become their own best coach. So the route we've gone with that is when we start the year, when we first start the fall and guys come in, we tell them they are all going to do the same thing. And we're going to teach them these different feels and teach them the different drills. And we want them all to know all of them. And I tell them up front, like, these aren't all going to be good for you, but I want you to try it. And then we start giving them some options. And it's like, okay, here's some different things that are going to, help us turn better. What do you want to do today for your feels and give them some freedom and give them we start off with just options. Like, so here's 2 options. Which one do you want? And then by the end of the semester, we get to where they get to come up with their entire hitting plan of what works best for them, feels best for them. So then it does become very individual.
And that's like, it's very rare for me to talk to a head coach that's so interested in the hitting side. When you get to a certain level of coaching, you kind of become a manager and you let everybody do their little thing. How have you been able to do all of the head coaching responsibilities, but also retain your obvious passion for training hitters in the cage day by day?
That's a great question. It is hard, but I think it's I don't know. I think there's so many things in baseball where it's like, well, why do we have to do it that way? Why does this thing have to be the head coach's role? Like, so there's some different things that I'm going to take off my plate because this is my strength. It is my passion. Like, why would I stop doing that just because, well, normally the head coach doesn't do it? Well, I love doing it. I think it's something I'm gifted at. I have a passion for it. So I'm going to spend time doing that. And then there's a few other things that I'm going to then delegate. Fortunately, I've had phenomenal assistants and even things like having that's how the director of hitting development came about. Like, I don't have the time to run all that tech myself and to run the numbers, but now I have a guy that I can say, hey, Ev, can you show me this or this and this on the whole team? Or can you get me the data, the blast data on so-and-so? And then he can get that. And then that allows me to work with the hitters and then still do all the other stuff that goes along with coaching. But at the same time, like, I would not trade it. I think there's so much benefit to kind of being in the trenches with our guys and knowing what they're feeling and the relationship you develop. And I know you guys know this better than anybody, the time you spend with guys in the cage, the relationship you develop with them, just from just being together, working together, conversations you're going to have when you're hitting, you're done hitting, you're picking balls up, you're just hanging out in the cage. Like, I think there's so many benefits to it that I couldn't give it up. I think another huge benefit is I'm going to be at practice every single day. And you think a lot of times your assistant coaches, they're going to miss, they're going to be out recruiting. Well, if I'm our main hitting coach, then it's guaranteed that I will be with them and I'll see everything you do and be a part of it every day of your career at DVU. Compared to, if the recruiting coordinator's doing it, he's gone a lot, and then you're on your own. So I think there's a lot of benefits to it, and it's kind of just what's important to you, and you find time for it, and you figure out how can we make this work by delegating some other things.
Well, I think that's really cool. And when I think about my own choices that I'm starting to make now about how I want to work and what I want to do and what's really important for the business versus what I need to let go. And that can actually maximize my own productivity and then give the autonomy to other people to actually elevate themselves. One of the questions that I have, you've got Cliff Pennington on your staff, correct? And
yes.
He played in the big leagues for what, 8-10 years, something like that. So
11 years.
There you go, 11. So how, earlier in my rant, right, we were talking about like, did you play in the big leagues? Did you not? Can you still be a great coach? I think everybody listening to this understands that you're very highly regarded as a hitting coach. But Cliff has faced some of the best pitchers in the history of baseball. How is it to tell him what you want done on the hitting side? Like how's that go? And two, how much back and forth is there where you have to take a step back and go, well, he has faced an 80 grade slider and this guy's really good on the slider, so maybe I should listen to what he says.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think in what you said at the beginning, I agree with it completely. I think sometimes it's when you're not the best and it didn't come natural to you and you had to work your way to it, you learn a lot of things and it's just going to make you a better coach. And I know that was true for me, but I think then when you get a player who's like Cliff has played at that level, but he is extremely growth mindset. Like he was a worker, he was a grinder himself. Like he was kind of the thinking man's player. And then he comes into coaching. And so the way I met him was he gets done playing. He knows he wants to get into coaching. And he had seen a couple videos I did and he called me up and he said, hey, can I come up and can we talk hitting? Well, we spent an entire day talking hitting and I'm picking his brain on infield play and, exactly what you said. It's like, okay, I kind of know these things from coaching. What's it like in the box? And, so we start going through that and just had a great time talking. And then that kind of started that relationship. And then we had an opening and, interviewed him, ended up hiring him. And he's unbelievable. But I think the key is if you have experience plus humility, it's unbelievable. And, experience plus a growth mindset and humility, then it really, really works. And then the way, just like you said, the way we can work together, it's like, okay, we have a pretty good system, we feel like, on developing guys on the hitting side. So, and then we just talked about that, like, let's kind of keep these things the same. I want your feedback though, like, just what you feel, what you see, what you think. So it's constantly asking him, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And then he gives feedback. We try to be real careful though about, having a unified message to our guys and being careful about, you don't want multiple voices and then accidentally you say different things to each other. But, where he is just unbelievable is like the approach side of things, in game, game planning, picking up tendencies, how guys tip pitches. Like when you've played that long, like you pick some things up. So it's been phenomenal because of the type of person he is and his humility and his attitude. And like, so it's literally every time we talk to the group, I usually start it off, I share something and we go through it, get some feedback from players, and it almost is always going to be, Cliff, what do you think? And then, he'll jump in with what, things he's experienced before. And it's been awesome. Probably the same as what you guys do, where you have things you coach and things you teach, and then you try to find a big leaguer that, a quote that he has or a video or where he's talking about something similar. Well, we have the cool thing of now I have that every day in person.
Nah, that's definitely cool. I know when Ryan Mountcastle just came up and hit, and hold on, let me pick up that name I just dropped. Sorry about that. Ryan just came up and hit, and he hit 33 home runs in the big leagues last year. And it was funny. I've only seen him play 2 games ever. And one of the games he actually hit 3 home runs at the game I was at. What's funny is he was 0 for 3 going into that last at bat of his first game. And my wife, Megan, looks at me and goes, "Is he even good?" And I'm like, "Megan, it's hard." Like, I was like, "This is really hard. Like, I have no idea how he's doing what he's doing." But, people ask me all the time, what do you tell Manny Ramirez? What do you tell Ryan Mountcastle? What do you tell Mark Canha about hitting in a game? The answer is not much. You just try to get them to understand if they get themselves into optimal positions to rotate fast, then they can see the pitch longer, decide later, and make their elite movements work. And I just think it's really interesting to talk to these pro guys. I mean, Eric works with tons of pro guys now, more than I do, mostly minor leaguers, and the way they talk about how they feel stuff and the way they talk about their approaches, it's so much more articulate than like a high school kid who, I don't know how recruiting coordinators do it. They talk to 17, 16-year-old boys a night, and it's just, "Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir." But it's so different in Eric's cage with his older guys. And now his high school guys have been around his pro guys, and they're starting to grow too. Eric, tell us a little bit about how that's happened for you.
Yeah, and honestly, that leads directly into the question I had for you, Dan. Is you talked earlier about the players being an active participant in their development, and I think that's, without saying, that's one of the biggest keys is they have to have a say in it because they're the ones in the box, they're the ones feeling it. So I want to ask you, do you find with freshmen and with transfers that it's difficult for them to express their opinions on their swing and to be an active participant? And how do you get them out of their shell per se to allow them to be the active participant and have their word and be able to say, "Hey, I don't get this. I don't know how this works for me."
Yeah, definitely. And I think it helps though, like where we always hit in groups and we'll have a couple guys at a time. And I try to, I'm pretty specific about who I pair guys up with. Like I want them to be with guys who have similar swing things. And I always want a new guy with a returner because I think just so much more is caught than taught. So when they see us talking back and forth and they see the returning guy, maybe, I give him a suggestion, he tries it and he says, I don't feel that, or that doesn't feel good for me, or I feel like I'm better when I do this. I think then that gives them the freedom to be like, oh, if
I
Andrew
do get a
Bennett,
say in this.
if Benny just did that, then I guess he's going to be okay with me as well. And I think another huge one is like, as a coach, I think we have to be great at asking questions and drawing them out. So one thing, we try to do is it's always like if they make them, so it's even just not if I'm trying to change something, like a guy, say he rolls over 2 in a row. Like number one, I'm not going to say something for a while. Like I want to let them make an adjustment on their own. I think that's one thing I've just learned myself, and I think most of us as coaches, a guy makes a mistake, boom, we want to jump in and fix it right away. Well, let's give him the opportunity first to make the adjustment, and then if he doesn't, if I watch him take a few swings in a row where he keeps doing the same thing over and over, then just ask, hey Ryan, what are you feeling? Why do you think you keep rolling over that pitch? And see what his feedback is. Like let him talk first, and then I might throw out a suggestion like, okay, well, what do you think about this? Why don't you try this on this next pitch? Let him go. How did that feel? So that's kind of the route we go, is just questions and trying to get them open up, try to feel what they're feeling, try to, and how do they say it too? So it's not my verbiage, that I can talk in their hitting language too.
Yeah, that's a really big deal. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is you talked about asking questions and getting what they feel. What they feel might be different than what you want to say, but I always talk about like the golden hitting is being able to say the same thing 100 different ways. And so if we can we can start building that ladder of what's actually happening from what they feel, first just throwing something at them that they might not even thought about, then I think we're closer to making a connection to that player. So I love that. And that's hard for me. Like I said, I just got done with a high school winter group program, and a lot of the same philosophies of you of trying to build those groups with guys that have done it before, guys that are committed to college, and freshmen, and some really talented freshmen, and to expose them to the fact of, hey, yes, I am considered the coach or the instructor, but it's your swing. And so we've got to create a feel library of something to go back to, because unfortunately, as the instructor, I'm not there with you in the game. I'm not in the box with you. And so you do have to have something to where, hey, I feel like I'm under this. What do I personally have to go back to get back to where I want to be?
Yep. You know, another one now that we're talking about, I think really helps a lot is getting their background. And now guys have all their swings. So, you know, we recruited them. So a lot of times we're going to have them too. But to go back and say, hey, when you were at your best, what were you doing? What were you thinking? Hey, do you have some of those swings? Send me some of the swings when you were going really good. You know, let me see your top. Find your top 10. Send them to me, and then you know I watch them, and then hey, what were you thinking? What were you doing? Then I get to see them, and now I feel like you have some new credibility there because it's like I went back with them, so it's not like we're just starting from scratch and I don't know any background. Like I think that helps a lot too, is to kind of find out when they were good, what they were doing, and then let's start there instead of just starting from no man's land.
No, it's great. And you talked about how you build a library of feels with every kid. So every player comes in and they learn the same progression at the beginning. That's exactly how we do it too. It's like learning the numbers or learning the ABCs. Once you have that, then you can get into math, you can get into calculus, you can figure out, drill down on how the swing actually works for player X versus player Y. But if they don't have the same like beginning base, if they're not speaking the same language with you or the other coaching staffs, there's, you need Rosetta Stone to figure out what they're doing, and that's not going to work. You have to have a consistent language of learning. I think that's something that it sounds like you guys do great at Dallas Baptist, and it's a big part of how we train guys here at BR too. Like we have a new instructor. He's what's Wednesday, so it's his third day. He's a former college coach. He's coached in some good elite summer leagues as well. He's really a talented instructor already. And he still has to learn the vocabulary and go through the certifications and go through that process with the younger kids because, frankly, it's easier for him to work with an older guy. He's used to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about the kid that's played baseball for like 2 weeks and has a bat that's his older brother's and 4 inches too big, and you got to like deal with that? And we do that all day long. And so that's the unique thing about Baseball Rebellion is we never know who's going to walk through the door. Today we had a 68-year-old and I worked with a 5-year-old. So that's a pretty big range of athletic prowess and verbal ability and thought process and maturity. So, I mean, obviously you're going to deal with some of that with freshmen and transfers. Do you ever have problems with people that, say they come in and they have a very specific hitting philosophy that's what they do? And maybe you didn't know this when you recruited them, or do you ever have any resistance from players or even on the coaching staff to your ideas, or are you kind of past that?
Yeah, that's a great question because obviously now everybody can, you can look things up online, and a lot of guys are going to have, say, their own hitting coach from when they were in high school or whatever, or a junior college guy where he's had success in the past, so he kind of has his way of doing it. That's again where I think we just want to build rapport with them first, and then, I think you earn it. Like I think you have to earn trust with guys, and I think where we can show them, obviously past success, so they know that. But when I'm selling something to them, I want to have a reason behind it. Like there needs to be a why behind everything we're doing, and I want them to ask questions, and I want to explain the why on everything we do. So I think we really haven't, butted heads a whole lot on things in the past. Like there's time to time where I just know this is not going to work. Like what you're doing, like we're going to have to make a change. And I know sometimes the theory is you let them fail, and then they're going to be more open to it. But there's also a point where it's like we don't have enough time to let you fail. Like we need to start working on this right now. I don't know. I just have just found, let's just be honest, open, just go straight to the point on things, and then try to earn their respect, earn their trust. And I think, we always go to the best. Like we're going to big leaguers all the time. Like those guys, like what they're doing it for a reason because it works against elite pitching. And obviously there's some nuance on how they do things and some different styles and stuff, but I've always found like you can sell it when you compare them to. We try to find guys like a big league comp. Who's a similar body type, how do you moves in a similar way. And it's often it's not going to just be one thing. Maybe it's this move that this guy makes. Show it to him. Here's why I think this would be good for you. Um, let's now figure out a drill and a way to do it that's not real internal. That's more of an external way of getting them to do it. That's kind of the route we've gone, and I think it's helped kind of speed that up and also get some buy-in.
Sure. I mean, obviously it's worked for you. Eric, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You have something?
Yeah, what I was going to say was, so I personally am very internal with my cueing. That doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm just telling you what I do, because I want the hitter to have unyielding confidence in their ability to control their bodies. And that's a little bit different than what a lot of people are doing now. Making practice sessions like, ridiculously hard, double barrel machine with strobe glasses and different stuff too. I mean, there's definitely time to promote failure, see what breaks, so you can go back and deliberately practice it. But the way you talk about hitting is so fascinating to me, because it's a conversation, it's a dialogue, it's a give and take in practice. What's it like when you got those 9 guys on the field? You got to win a game.
I mean, we want to have a team philosophy. So again, like, this is super fun for me, is develop a team philosophy that allows them to be an individual. So, we've done all that work ahead of time, and, every day, like, I'm going to touch them every day. So every game day, like, we're going to have early work. I'm going to be with each guy one-on-one, get with them. Hey, what do you have today? What do you want to work on? And then I'll give suggestions. Like, I want them leaving the cage feeling good about where they're at that day. Then we go into all of our, pregame BP, that kind of stuff. And then come game time, now we're going to plan an approach against the guy. We do our approaches similar to how we do our swing stuff. Like, we're going to give them multiple different approaches that you have to choose from. So, like, we're inter squatting yesterday, and as I'm standing in the dugout right by the on deck circle, and as that guy, the in the hole guy, comes up and, hey, what's your game plan going against, Chaz here? And, he said, well, I'm going fastball shorts on him. Next guy up, I'm going to go fastball spit. Okay, why are you thinking that? And just kind of try to ask them questions. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? We're going to give them some information ahead of time that'll help them make those decisions. But yeah, I just feel like they got to be a part in it. And I just always think it works best when I start with a question and get their feedback first on what they think. And then I might, I don't know. I haven't seen him land a breaking ball yet. I would just eliminate that. Like, just let's go fastball spit on him. What do you think of that? Okay, yeah. I guess if he hasn't landed one, that sounds good. Like, then it's like it just seems way more receptive than, okay, you're going, we're all going fastball spit.
Right. Well, then it's their idea. I was talking to an athlete literally 2 days ago, and they were like, we had to hit, all we were allowed to swing at was changeups. And I had 4 at-bats, and I didn't get a single changeup, so I struck out 3 times and walked once. Like, okay. So I think something like that, you've got to have communication from the coach on the pitching side too. That's like, all right, well, half your pitches have to be changeups if this is what the hitters are trying to work on, so that there's at least you're getting something instead of just standing there waiting. It just sounds like, obviously you've been coaching for quite some time. You pretty much have an answer for everything that I've asked you, and it's very well thought through. I'm super impressed, Dan. I really am. I knew I would be, because you've had a lot of success at the level you're at, and I don't think about game coaching the same way you do. I don't coach games. Eric, you do what I do and you do what he does, right? So you have a team that you coach. Obviously it's not a Division I college baseball team, but you're trying to win games. How do you guys think what you do is different, both of you? Like, you're in the cage, you want them to feel good pregame or preseason, you're trying to really work through some things. but in a game, the lights are on. It's wins and losses. It's not effort, it's execution. So how do you balance that out?
Yeah, I'm not going to compare what I do to what Dan does, but I
I mean,
think
it is a little different. But what I'm saying is, you coach a team, so does he. You got to win games.
Yeah, and I love that part of it, and that's why I got into coaching that high school travel team is the competition side of it, and I love working in a cage with guys. But to be able to see the relationships you build in cages and the work you put in, and be able to apply it to where it really matters, and be able to see that kid develop trust in you because what you've worked on and the relationship you've built is paying off, and to me that's really rewarding. One thing, Dan, you mentioned you want to touch each guy one on one on game day. What does that look like? That's something I've never heard a head coach especially talk about. Is that one on one in the cage, or is that a conversation before BP, or what does that look like?
No, it's one on one in the cage. So we have
That's fascinating. That's
we'll have a
awesome.
pregame meal with the guys, and then after so early work is before the pregame meal, and we just kind of have a sign up sheet so that there's not a log jam in the cage.
Yeah.
So they come into the cage, and we have the cage we do it in. There's two cages. I'm going to have like Evan's going to be in there as well, flipping on the other side. So we have a couple guys hitting at a time, and they'll just rotate through. Like usually we have 2 to 4 guys in there at a time. They rotate through. They come in. They'll kind of be warming up. They'll do their pre-feels. They'll do all that stuff. They'll come into my cage, and I like to start off. Hey, what do you have today? And I'm going to start off with whatever, stride and stop or no stride drill. And okay, go for it. I watch them. What do you have now? Like let them go. And then if I have something, then hey, what do you think about? I'm seeing this. Why don't you do? What do you think about doing this drill? And then it just evolves to that. So that's kind of how we do it. It doesn't take long. Like if they're in there for 15 minutes, again, because I don't want to wear them out. Like we still have pregame BP and everything else that goes into it. But I feel like if I can hit them for 15 minutes every day, like I have a really good feel for what they're feeling, what they're working on. I'm able to give them suggestions. I get their feedback, and boom, just in and out, and do that on a consistent basis. Like that adds up to a lot of time over the course of a week, a month, a season. So that's kind of how we go about it. So it doesn't, for me, it doesn't take. It's super easy. It's really not a big deal. Like it takes, 16 hitters. I can touch all of them in an hour or an hour and 15 minutes. Like that's not that big of a thing. And to me, that is well worth it.
Oh, there's no doubt. And for those players to see their head coach and they're touching one on one on game day has to be such a good feeling for them as far as building confidence. I love that you do it before batting practice too. Then you can get that work in, and then they get to apply it in batting practice. I just think that's a great idea. I'm sure there's other coaches out there that do it, but this is the first I've heard of it, and that's just outstanding.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either. That's amazing. Well, listen, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I know Eric and I have been rolling since 9:30 a.m. Eastern, so we probably need to get some sleep at some point. But I really, really appreciate you coming on. Do you have any final thoughts on any of the things in the book, or any of the things you want people to understand about what you really think about making hitters better the fastest you can?
Well, I'll digress to one thing you talked about earlier, like what you guys are doing, where you go from you could have a kid who's just starting playing to a pro ball guy. I remember Rudy Jaramillo when he was coaching for the Rangers for a long time.
He's one of my favorite hitting coaches of all time. If you want me to dork out on Rudy Hermio, we can do that another time.
Okay, so Rudy, same as you, like you and I, we do the same thing. Like we can learn from anybody, and you try to. If they're getting results, like okay, what are you doing? So I'm digging into Rudy, and I find out in the off season he's a big league hitting coach for the Rangers when they were rolling, like when it was Gonzalez and Ruben Sierra and Palmeiro and all those guys. And in the off season, he's doing lessons with kids. And somebody asked him like, what why do you do that? You don't need to do that. He's like, it makes me better. Like I'm a better and it's an awesome lesson for all of us as coaches. Like, we want our players to get better, and how do you get better? Like, you put time in and you work at it. And it's the same for us as coaches. If we want to become better coaches, you put time in. And just like you said, like, if you can teach it to, sometimes, like, having to be able to simplify it and to get a kid to be able to do it. Okay, like you said, now it's going to be a whole lot easier with that older guy who has a better feel for his body. But like, I have 5 boys myself. I've learned so much working with them of, where they just can't do it like this. So you got to figure out a way to say it and do it and get them to feel it. So I think what you guys are doing awesome. And I think, like, when we have camps, I tell our coaches that, like, no, we're going to coach in camp, and we're going to do it because we want this kid to have a great experience. We want him to learn something, feel good, and get better. But the other reason we're going to do it is because it's going to make us better coaches too. So I really like what you said with that and how you guys do that. I don't know. I just genuinely, and you didn't ask me to pump the book or anything, but I'm going to, because I really believe in it. Like, if you turn better, you're a better hitter. It's going to help everything. Your power, like you said, you're going to have more time. You have a later point of decision. You have more power. Your path is going to be better. It's going to be easier for your hands to work if your body is turning right. And, like, the one thing I really loved in yours is the side bend, like how you're incorporating side bend and rotating to different locations. Well, that makes your hand path, your hand adjustment, so much smaller if you're able to turn with different postures.
Yes.
So I think that's outstanding. And yeah, if you're a better mover, you give yourself a chance to be a better hitter. Like, no question about it. So, and then to me, then it's finding ways, like you said, you go internal. I can nerd out on internal stuff with guys. I got to be careful to not do it too much, because that's the way my mind goes. Like, I got my master's degree is biomechanics, and my emphasis was on the biomechanical difference between contact hitters and power hitters. That's what I did my thesis on. So I can go there fast, but that's what I love about the feels and the rack. Like, to me, you can go internal on those things and get them to move correctly, so that then when you put a bat in their hand, now they can be more external and more free.
I love it.
Things I loved about the rack and your program and the book. I mean it. I can't wait for book number 2, because I think what I've learned is, like, with adding resistance just helps you feel things at a whole nother level. Like resisting it, and I don't know what's in there. I'm guessing it's probably resist and assist. Sometimes it's, making them do it right, and now resist them, force them to do it right on their own. So I'm fired up for that part of it, to see how you've done that and just what you've learned, because you guys have put in thousands of hours of doing these things, and I kind of get to skip a little bit of that and find out where you're at.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Resistance, assistance, and then also angle of force is really, really important. And, I think that gets missed quite a bit. Last thing I'll say, and then I promise I'll be quiet. One of the biggest things that I think is problematic is weighted bats. The angle of force is down. We're swinging around. So people just understanding the value of something as simple as, like, wind resistance instead of weight pulling you. Little things like that, I think they're very, very subtle, because a weighted bat, a sledgehammer, a banded pull or whatever, they all kind of seem the same. But when you start talking about angles of force and you start talking about bat path and staying on pitches, they're not the same. And the way your body is dealing with supporting gravitational force versus centripetal force is radically different on the musculoskeletal system. So you just have to make sure that you don't maybe get into that with the hitters, right? But you got to know it, and then you've got to be able to implement it in an intelligent way. So you will like load the turn very, very much, I believe, and I cannot wait for you to read it. I'm going to make sure that you read it before I put it out. Maybe I'll even trick you into writing a forward. Who knows?
All right. That'd be great.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Eric, I appreciate you jumping in and filling in for Hoyle. I've loved talking to both of you. And every time I do a pod like this or a live show like this, I learn something, whether Eric says something smart or Dan, you. I haven't learned anything from Will yet. Maybe that'll happen someday, but I don't know. But, again, thank you so much for being here. Thank God iPod is every Wednesday night at 9:30 and very soon on iTunes and wherever get you your podcast. Dan, thanks again. Have a great night.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Eric, great job demoing on Learn the Term.
Thank you.
All right.
See you guys.